gosh. We are live and in color. Yes, yes, yes. The champ is here. The champ is here. Oh my gosh. I am so excited. Here we go. Come on. What's my volume? Yes. There we go. There we go. Come on, baby. Come on. Intimate discoveries, unveiling connections. The podcast, redefining the conversation around what it means to be intimate in the world where individuals are struggling with relationships. We ask the hard questions. We take intimacy head on, making sure that you understand that vulnerability is the birthplace for intimate relationships. And if you don't have vulnerability, you're not going to experience a level of closeness which is essential for a reciprocal relationship. I am your host, Champ Frank, and we are live and in color. Guess what? I got Legacy here, I got Golden, I got Kim coming in, and we about to bring it. Let's go!
Let's go! They said I wouldn't make it, but I'm here.
I'm here right now! Ow!
And I'm here to stay, never go down. Cause I'm a champion. A champion. Cause I'm a champion.
The topic tonight is gonna be juicy.
A champion.
Yep, we're about to get into it right now. Going out. Here we go. Yes. Yes, yes, yes. Oh my gosh. Legacy is in the house already on. Yes. Golden is coming in. Oh my Lord. I tell you, ladies and gentlemen, you are in for a treat. Oh my gosh, my heart is just swelling. I'm telling you right now, yes. Here we go. We got a juicy topic today, unveiling her desires, the intricacies of female role play, right? So what we're doing today is we're going to delve into the top fears, frustration, and desires have with role play sex and how to create a supportive environment for exploring these fantasies. And we have a dynamic guest also coming on. We have Legacy to introduce her because this is one of her dear friends who can share and who's going to contribute significantly. I'll give you a little bit about me, right? And when it comes to this particular role, I'll tell you in the beginning. No, I'm going to tell you. I'll tell you. I missed this part at the beginning of my marriage. I missed this part, and particularly because I didn't know, and nobody was there to like tell me. So this was a particular episode or opportunity in my marriage when I missed it. So without further ado, I'm gonna make sure that you don't miss it when you tune in and hear what we got to say. All right, without further ado, Legacy, how you doing?
I am well. I am well. It is amazingly beautiful today in the Queen City. And when you sent me this topic, I was like, woo, all right.
Yeah.
It's about to get spicy. And so I'm excited, but I don't know who the guest is. You didn't give me the name.
Listen. I'm gonna tell you this here, right?
You got me in the dark. You got me in the dark.
I threw out a Hail Mary, and my girl, she came through because this topic here is taboo for some individuals, and so I had a person coming on today, and I did some research on some topics that are gonna be that's gonna capture our audience, that are gonna be in the forefront of the relationships where people are suffering. So I'm like, come on, give me a topic. And this is what came up. And so I sent it to her. I'm like, hey, this is what we're going to talk about. Well, I don't do role play. Well, this is why we're having a conversation. So if you can come on, you ain't gotta tell me your name, April. Yeah, no, her name wasn't April. But I'm not gonna put her out there like that. But my point is you could have came on as whoever you wanted to. But tell us about why you don't get into role play. What is your fear? Why haven't you gotten to this? But anyway, so that being said, God is on my side because He knows that I'm trying to help individuals to experience meaningful relationships. Because I tell you that right before my marriage was ending, I discovered that my wife had 14 arousal zones. and and I was like, oh my gosh, I missed. I there was never a time that I had 8 arousal zones activated when we were intimate. Not even 7, 6. Look out now. But my point is that her brain was the biggest one. Her feet was another one. The back of her hand, her neck, her nipples, right? Those are just some of the arousal zones, right? But again, anyway, let's get on into it. Let's go, Legacy. I mean, come on, go and talk to me.
Hey, how's
Hey,
it going, everyone?
it's good.
Hey.
Good. It's good. It's good to be here. Um, yes, this is going to be a juicy topic. I have a very, very dear friend of mine that I have known actually over 25 years, about 25 years. And our kids went to at least our younger kids went to school together, and we have had a long time friendship, sisterhood. And she was married. Correct me if I'm wrong, Kim. I believe 25 years, and she's currently divorced. What is it?
I know
She's
I
Uh oh. Uh oh. Hold on. Did I miss something? Hold on. Cancel. Uh oh. No. No. We're here. I told y'all.
Are we good?
No. We're good. I'm about to. Yeah, we're good. Yo, you're tracking. You're tracking.
Okay. So
Yeah.
she, as I was saying, she's a wonderful friend of mine, smart, intelligent, just great, great, great person. She really needs to be a sex therapist, but she has her degree in counseling psychology. She's just so into relationships and the intricacies, the ins and outs. And I just think she is a wonderful person and she has a lot to share.
Are
So,
you there, Kim?
Kim Thomas, here you are. Yay! I think she deserves some
I
clap.
am here, and you all have been so very kind in your introductions. Thank you very much for having me here this evening. I was surprised when I was asked to be a guest speaker, but this is a little impromptu for me. But as Franklin and Laurie have stated, I am been married, well, was married for 25 years. Didn't discover a lot of things about intimacy until after the marriage, interestingly enough. So I'm glad to be here, and I hope that I can lend some insight into the topic of this conversation this evening.
All right, well, let's get into it. Oh my gosh. Let's see what we got here. Let's see. Let me go here. So who wants to, let me say here. So what desires, so here we go right now. Let's go right into the one question, right? What are the desires that women have when it comes to role play? Like what
What?
kind of challenge? Yeah, like so when we look at role play, right? Um how do you poise the question, right? How do you share that part? Well, how do you get into that?
So when I think of role play in terms of intimacy, I think of um, the man and woman taking on
reverse characteristics within the bedroom, right? And so for me, when I think of role play, I think of I'm empowered this time. I'm in control, not wanting to obviously emasculate my man in the bedroom. However, when I think of role playing, I think of allowing myself to step outside of my feminine self and the vulnerable self, the receiving self, and become the giver
Mm-hmm.
and the taker.
Okay. And then like so when we look at like the common fears that women have with role play, did you just like walk into that, or like how did you get to that point where you like, you know what, I'm gonna take over?
Well, first, I think you have to become very comfortable with yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You have to be able to love yourself. You have to be able to love the way you look when you're naked. And when I say naked, not just in the physical sense, but also in the mental sense, allowing yourself to be totally exposed and
Mm-hmm.
out there. And for me, allowing myself to know that, all the little imperfections that I see in myself, that nobody else could see, or if they could see them, they weren't important. So for me, it was actually first becoming very comfortable with myself, my body, who I was, and also allowing myself to be in a space where I was with someone who was able to receive me as I am.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so there are variations to role play, right? Because you can what you're saying is that instead of you the guy initiating the sex, would it be safe to say that you would be initiating the sex? And I kind of heard something about you not emasculating him, and but you're the giver. To what degree are you giving, right? You strapping on? And no, yeah, I'm asking, yeah.
Sometimes that comes into play depending upon the couple. Absolutely. Within the confines of your bedroom and intimacy, whatever he can accept and receive, if he's open for it, I'm open for it. And that's just also part of being very comfortable with, the person that you're being intimate with. So, yes. So for me, it could involve anything. It could involve strapping on if my mate was willing to receive that. So I just want to add that I think a lot of, and I think I can speak for some women that, one of the top fears is rejection or judgment.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say you meet someone and your relationship evolves into a sexual relationship. And so if a woman may want to try different things with her new guy or woman or whatever, um, the partner may feel, oh, well, how did you know this? Where did you learn all of this? And so
Mm-hmm.
then the judgment starts to play into that scenario. And so that evolves into some insecurities. Well, gee, does he or she think I'm a hoe, or like what is going on? So then you kind of pull back and you're not feeling as comfortable, or your partner may not feel safe. They feel that it's not, um their boundaries haven't been, I guess, set. So I think you have to look at all of those things.
Mm-hmm. And it does when it comes to being vulnerable and providing that safe space. And like we talk about vulnerability being the birthplace for intimate relationships. We also go a little bit deeper to say that there are two components in order for vulnerability to exist, and that's a safe space for the person to be vulnerable, and then a brave space for the person to be brave enough to be vulnerable. And so the brave space is the person's responsibility, whereas the safe space, in my concept, is that the safe space is the your partner's responsibility, and vice versa in a reciprocal relationship. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think that it.
I mirror that in terms of as Golden spoke. Interestingly enough, I was married for 25 years and in the same relationship with a man for 30 years, but I never felt comfortable enough. I never felt like I was in a safe space to really express myself like I wanted to. Mm-hmm. And you know, when you start to go there, because you're in a marriage and this is part of the marital relationship, and that person rejects it just like once I got rejected, I never allowed myself to go there anymore. Mm-hmm. And so coming out of the marriage and starting to date again and meeting someone who provided me with that psychologically safe space, it was on because it was already something that I wanted to explore, and I was brave enough to do it. Mm-hmm. But only with the person that gave me that safe space. Absolutely. And first of all, I'm gonna say I'm sorry that you went through that for so many years, and that you were robbed of those opportunities, because um, I understand how men how we can miss it, because there's nobody teaching us, right? My dad told me 28, make sure you wash off in 28 minutes. Uh, and and that was my lesson on sex, right? My uncles never got married. Um, my brother's father was a pimp. Don Juan is my stepmother's uncle. So intimacy and vulnerability and allowing a woman to be heard when it comes to sex was foreign. So I'll tell you that when she said, "Hey, can we use a dildo for a vibrator?" I was like, "Are you what? Are you serious? No, I'm not good enough." But the thing is that once, as I started studying, that's why I became an intimacy consultant and clinical sexuality coach, master sexpert, because I understood that one of the reasons why she wanted a vibrator was because she needed clitoral stimulation, right? And the vibrator allowed her to do that at the pinpoint when she wanted to do it. And I missed it for so long. But people who are listening now, hopefully they will not miss it anymore.
Well, I don't know about, it's like raising children. There's no textbook how to raise children. There are textbooks on how to have great sex, but I think people have to open up and change their mindsets. I mean, this isn't the 1930s or 20s or whatever. I grew up in a household with my parents having sex and watching movies. I remember when I was little, my parents would go out and we would go into their bedroom and we would get the movies, the reels that had the film on the reel. And we would turn them on, and my sister knew how to do it. And we would turn them on, and it was like porn. It wasn't soft porn, it was straight up porn. My parents were in their 80s,
Wow.
still having sex and doing all the things that I really didn't want to know about until my mother told me. because my dad had a stroke and my mom was like really upset. And I'm just like, wow, she kept saying, it's all my fault. It's all my fault. And it's like, no, no, mommy, it's not all your fault. Like, what is going on? And so she said, well, your dad and I were having sex, and I thought the floor was going to open up and I was just going to jump in. And she just started telling me about their intimacy, their sex, and they were actually visiting me at the time, the night before his stroke. And I was thinking, so you were in the guest room having sex with daddy? And so it was, and then, she turned to me and she said, girl, grow up. Like,
Right.
okay. So that's how I grew up in in that type of environment where especially my mom, she just did not hide being human and intimate and talking to us about sex and our partners. And actually, I can tell you some hilarious stories my mom would tell us, but that's another podcast. But it has to be something that both partners agree on. I think active listening is a strong part of having a great sex life in terms of listening and not interrupting and or not judging, and sometimes showing some empathy for your partner. If they are not there, they don't understand, or who knows, something could have happened in their teens that traumatize them, or for whatever reason. But
Mhm.
it takes an active listener to agree to it. And it definitely has to be agreed upon, not forced.
Yes, yes, and very well said, Golden. And Champ Franklin, I want to say thank you for the condolences. However, I am making up for that lost time. Trust and believe.
I know that's right. Go on, girl.
I am making up for that.
I know that's right. That's what I'm talking about. Listen.
Yes.
I,
Yes, and more. Golden mentioned changing the way that we think about sex. And back in the day, it was taboo, but back in the day, they were also getting it in. Like our parents were getting it in. My mother was, we'd come home and she'd be laying on the couch with her little bouffant on and all in her little sexy lingerie, waiting for my dad. Wasn't expecting us to come home. However, I feel like um, I have friends that say, "Oh, sex is overrated," and I'm like, "What are you talking about, girl? You must not be getting it like I am, because it is not overrated. Trust and believe." But I say that to say that there's so many women out here that are not experiencing the joy of intimacy and sex.
Nope, not at
So
all.
is derived from the way they were raised, and some is just derived from just relationships that just lacked a woman being stroked in the right way so that she could experience um, intimacy in a way that was pleasurable to her.
Mm-hmm. I agree with you. I've had numerous conversations through the years with friends or female friends, male friends. I know men who are married. Um, I had a friend who they conceived their son, and then for 6 years were not intimate at all. And I'm like, wait, what? Like, what's happening? Like, have y'all sought, counseling things? But she just refused to really share as to what was going on. It was on the wife and things. And I'm like, but so how do you manage a marriage like that for that long? And it was very difficult for him. And to be quite honest, I don't think they're together now, which is probably about 2 or 3 years later. And then but it's a common story, or like women being comfortable with exploring their sexuality and feeling confident in their body. I have to honestly say, for me, ironically, what made me confident when I was married, my ex husband and I, we did the same thing your mom and dad did. We watched pornography together to explore, um, something different and unique for ourselves. And it really helped me to understand my body and be comfortable with my own body, and to be a little bit more exploratory, not over, not crazy. I haven't done anything, really crazy out there. I do have some friends who are very, they like keto, and that's one of their favorite places. I didn't even know to the degree of what transpires at hedonism until recently, and I was like, oh wow, okay,
Yeah.
I know
Come on,
that.
Lexi, tell us about your cousin. Yeah, my
Mhm.
cousin.
My cousin, I
Yeah,
just
my
thought,
cousin. Right,
I
right.
thought, yeah, I thought hedonism was just a nudist colony, but it's nudist
Uh-oh.
plus. And I was like,
Right.
oh, what?
Optional.
Right.
But
It's activity optional. I was like,
Yeah.
oh, and
Yeah.
that there are other places in other countries that have the same thing. And I'm
Mhm.
like, oh, okay. I did not know, and I think that if someone is going to, explore, and like I had a friend, unfortunately, she passed away earlier this year, but she was very big. She used to be she used to be a dominatrix back in the day. This is my sorority sister, and but I was married. Her madam was looking for someone who was more of a full figured woman like myself. I'm tall, full figured, and all she did was she never had sex with anyone, but she used to sit on men's faces. She used to beat them, and I'm like, that's it. And I said, well, what do you wear? She was like, I wear like boy shorts, and I sit on their face and I do things. And I had a coworker years prior to that used to whip men for $100 an hour. I'm like, excuse me? She was like, yeah, they're much older men, and that's all they want me to do. And I'm like, what? And but I didn't do it when she was when her madam was looking for something. I didn't do it because I was married at the time. But I was like, wow. And she's experienced using a strap on with men and things, and I'm like, what? Wow. And I had an ex who does special event security, and he didn't even know that he was walking into a party to, he did special events, and he was assigned to a penthouse, but he was on the lower level of the penthouse. They switched out, and he had to ride the elevator, and he was like, he was seeing professional people, men go up. It was just men, and
mhm.
it was women. You remember back in the day, women would walk through clubs, cigarettes, and they had the little case with the strap around their neck. And he saw the women dressed in these little outfits, and they would get on the elevator, and the security had to make sure people were going to the right floor. It was like 2 or 3 floors in this penthouse in Manhattan, in New York. And he said when the elevator opened the first time, he said his mouth hit the floor. He said it was a bunch of young women it was just one giant orgy of like 20 plus people.
Mm.
And he said it was something that he had only ever seen in pornography, but it was live and in person. And he was like, oh, like he said everybody was getting it in. The women looked like they done went through the ringer, sweaty. Everybody was sweaty. He said he saw butts and balls and this and that. And I'm like, what? He was like, it was too much for me. He said, one, unfortunately, because a lot of the young women were adults, but they were young girls. And he was like, and these were much older men. He was like, nope. He was like, he told the guys, he was like, I got to go. Because he's a PK, even though he's wild. He was like, that was a little bit too much for me. But then, people are really exploring, their likes and
dislikes. Yeah, I'll share some more. I'll let some others talk and share, but this is a very interesting topic.
Yeah. So
Chandler.
I'm gonna Kim, did you want to say something?
No, I'm fine.
Okay, so I want to sort of tap into the watching of pornography
Hmm.
aspect of it, because when I was married, that happened, right? We would watch porn, um, but what I discovered is that because we did not have a safe space in our relationship, that we were skipping the most important component of our relationship. And so had I spent quality time with her, had I hired somebody to mow the lawn, had I just watched a movie and stayed awake, right? Had I no had I just let the kids go, that it is possible that we wouldn't have needed the pornography, right?
Hmm.
It is possible because here's the thing, right? Most pornography is one-sided,
Yeah.
right? And
Hmm.
so I'm watching the porn, and the girl is taking this plow and just like and that's what I saw, right? So here I am. All right, well, come on, let me show you. Let me do what he did on her with the plow. And she's like,
Wow. Oh my.
bruh, hold on. I'm
Oh,
like,
that you got it too. Like, oh
I'm like, hold on, stay right there because
my.
this is I'm going step by step with this thing, and so let me just let me just do like they
Mm.
but only but here's the other part, right? Being able to be vulnerable and show up for class as men should, because each woman's body is different and each woman experience orgasms differently. Women have arousal networks, they have an erogenous network, they have all of these components that are in different spaces and different levels that you have to be able to listen and share and understand their bodies, right? And this is the last part, right? And it was, because she was like, she actually set me down on a video, right? And this woman actually handling a vagina, and she's, grabbing the lips and doing, playing with it and all this. And I'm like, she like, you can play with it like this. I'm like, oh, I, I didn't know because again, 28 minutes. Get up there, you get yours, I get mine. As long as I'm getting the tingling sensation, I'm good. Um, and if I can blow your back out, then I did my job. And if I can go and brag about with the guys that my body counts up to 275, um, then I'm good. The problem with that is that of the 275, and I'm not at 275. I'm just saying for the sake of this conversation, of the 275, I had no repeat customers because I didn't know what I was doing.
Well, in understanding how couples can, I guess, relate to each other and understand, what each other enjoys if they enjoy each other. Let's say you have a couple and for some reason the wife is like, let's role play, and the husband says, or partner says, no, that's not my thing, but I'll do it for you, or I'll do it to you, or whatever. Like, how do you handle that type of, I guess, letdown? Because as soon as someone says that's not my thing, what happens? The partner, the other person shuts down.
Mm-hmm.
And so that decreases the enjoyment, or the pleasure of intimacy, at least sexually. And so you tend to go with it and go with it. Well, he doesn't enjoy it and blah, 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 blah. So what do they do? And I think that's when a lot of people tend to seek it elsewhere
Mm-hmm.
outside of that relationship. Unless, unless you are a couple that, and Kim and I were talking about this earlier, unless you are a couple that enjoys, oh gosh, what is it called? What is it called, Kim?
Swinging.
Swinging.
But the thing is that, but here's the challenge with that. I this is why I often give the definition of intimacy, right? That intimacy is a level of commitment, positive, effective, cognitive, and physical closeness that one experience with a partner in a reciprocal relationship, right? And when it comes to sexual intimacy, it requires you to share your body in the form of physical touch and sexual activities. It's a commitment. And so when a person says that's not me, I'm not doing that, you have just violated the definition or the law of our intimate relationship. And so and again, this is what I had to do, right? I had to come to this point where if I was in the streets and I didn't reciprocate when the guy gave me $20, and I didn't give him $20 worth of cocaine, somebody was dealing with me, right? And this is the problem that we have in these relationships, because there's very few people who can deal with men and their inability to commit to reciprocity.
Well, hold on a second too, Franklin, because you slid right past where Golden was talking when she was talking about swinging, and I thought you was going in that direction. You sort of slip and slide right past there.
Okay, well,
So
we can we can go back to swinging, but go ahead, but go ahead. The thing is, don't
Let
you
us
want to
finish.
swing? Go ahead, Legacy. Come on.
so so Golden, say that again. That what you were talking about, that you and Kim were talking about earlier.
Well, I was just saying, when you have a partner that says, I'm not interested, I'm just, I'm just the typical guy, and I just, want to have sex with you, and we can enjoy each other, but I'm not into the role playing thing. Okay, great. And I said, unless you are a couple that enjoys swinging.
Mm-hmm.
And I say that because I have some dear friends that are swingers.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
they, of course, not only enjoy the intimacy between the two of them, but they enjoy the intimacy amongst other people.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
But is that really intimacy? Is
That,
that really intimacy when you're it's like men that go to prostitutes, right? They don't really want the emotional connection. They just want the sex. So when you have couples that are sharing with other people, where do you get to that emotional intimacy, that mental intimacy?
Right.
It's just the act.
Absolutely.
It's just the act of sex.
And that's the part why I now have Maslow's hierarchy of needs, Kim, where emotional intimacy is in the middle, right? And sexual intimacy is at the top. And if you're not able to provide that safe space where vulnerability exists, and if you're not able to do that, then you're unable to have a true emotional connection. If you don't have an emotional connection and you're involved in sex, there is somebody who's walking away with an unfulfilled experience.
Yes.
yeah, but the okay, so
I'm gonna
I'm
play
sorry,
devil's
can we
advocate. I'm gonna let you go, Golden, and I'm gonna play devil's advocate. Go ahead.
okay,
No.
I'm going to play the two as well. So when you're talking about swingers,
Mm-hmm.
you're talking about, and I don't know because I am not a swinger. God bless them. Um, you're talking about people who enjoy commonalities. They enjoy each other's shared experiences.
Right.
So that is a form of intimacy. It may
That-
not be your form of intimacy, but
And
I believe that is a form of shared intimacy.
That is a form of shared intimacy, but the problem is that we have skipped the emotional connection.
That's not true.
Okay,
Yeah,
well,
That's
I,
not
I
true.
disagree with that too. Yeah.
okay, well, it's fine.
Because okay, I'm gonna put it out there. I tried it once.
You go,
All right.
girl.
I tried it once. I had a friend.
Mm-hmm.
We were not a couple, but I went to an event as a couple. I would never do it. I would have never have gone to an event as a single woman.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I went as a couple, and it was someone's birthday, and it was at this, um this spot, this, just in secret. And
Mm-hmm.
so it was very mysterious. We had to dress in lingerie once we got there,
Mm-hmm.
and everybody just actually sat around dressed, talking,
Right.
and just developing relationships. Most of them knew each other, so I was new to the circle, and I was, creating these relationships and interests, and we were all talking just about just general stuff. And
Right.
then a married couple, invited me and my friend into a room.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just a place that had these different rooms everywhere, and then it had one central room that was like they would have an orgy in, and people can watch and then also
Mm-hmm.
engage. And so it was him and I, and then the
Mm-hmm.
couple. And then at some point, there are rules, and so each couple had to ask permission to
Mm-hmm.
indulge with the other. So then we
Right.
switched,
Mm-hmm.
and it was very intriguing. I thought
Mm-hmm.
I was going to be nervous because I grew up very shy all my life, but it was like, this is not. I do have a little bit of a voyeurish kind of mindset. It was always in my head, but this time I was like, okay. And I didn't feel uncomfortable about walking
Mm-hmm.
around and
Right.
being seen, because there's a curtain over the room. Literally, it's like it's a room that's it's two king size mattresses filling up the
Mm-hmm.
whole room, and a shelf with wipes and condoms and all that kind of stuff.
And a
And
couple windows for people to watch.
no, the doorway and a curtain, and so people would just peek in, and some people would come in and stand and watch and touch
Mm-hmm.
and stuff. And so it was just the four of us at first, and then after we were done, she asked if she could, you know, give
Stay in it.
my guy oral sex,
Mm-hmm.
and her husband. And so she was performing on them, and then another woman came, and she asked me permission, and it was just, and then by the time, it was about 6 or 7 people in a room with us, and I was just observing like what was going on. And then I had my own little episode of oral sex that someone performed on me, a gentleman that was engaged in a conversation. There was a connection between the two of us earlier, and I was
Mm-hmm.
like, what in the world? But I knew when I walked away that evening, I was like, this is not something I want to delve in on a regular basis. And I was living in New York. When I moved to North Carolina, that connection sort of followed me on social media. And when I tell you, I was invited to big swingers organizations in North and South Carolina. I was invited to big parties in Atlanta from a lot of people. They have big parties at the what's that resort in Greensboro off of 85. They have big parties there, Raleigh. And I was like, no, thank you. No, thank you. No, thank you. But there is a level of intimacy because I came with someone, and it was what him and I were about,
Mm-hmm.
exploring our sexual prowess,
Right.
and him introducing me to something new and different. I
Mm-hmm.
just did not. And he was actually an owner of his own club in Baltimore. It was part of like everybody has their own clubs. And I was
Mm-hmm.
invited to another African woman's club. She was like, come out. I like you. And
The
this and that.
lion's den.
I was like, no, thank you. And I had another woman who was very interested in me because we were both like these Amazon women. She was about 6 feet one. I'm almost 6 feet. I'm 5'11". And I was like, no, thank you, because she's really out there. I was like, no, thank you. But it was exhilarating. It was it made me realize that I was a little bit more open and exposed to different things, as long as it was safe, because I did, and that's why I would only go as a couple, because I felt safe with him. He knew
Mhm.
people. I knew the people he was connected to. He felt safe with because he had partied with them numerous occasions,
Mhm.
and the environment was just very safe overall. And so there is a level of intimacy
Yeah, I have
there.
a question for you. Um,
Sure.
so did that feel like, and as I'm listening to you, I've never experienced that, and I've never had an interest because I'm strictly one, like I have to have that emotional, deep down emotional
Hmm.
connection for my body to even respond. But as I'm listening to you describe this experience, was it more of a lust kind of thing, or are you, or did you? I'm hearing the lust, right, but not necessarily the intimacy. And obviously, you experienced it, so you can tell me what it felt like. But it just, there's a difference when you see something that looks good, you're like, ooh, I want that, versus because your eyes are looking at something that looks good and tasty, and
Hmm.
you want to taste it, versus you really becoming deeply emotionally connected to that. Your soul wants it, not
Right.
just your body, your soul, your mind wants it.
So
That is a
so
great. Ooh,
go ahead. No, Legacy, answer the question.
I gotta answer the question. That is a great, great question, because for me personally, that's why I didn't proceed any further after that day. It was for me more of the experimentation and the lust. But for the other couples, because there were quite a few married couples there, I think for them it was a level of intimacy, because it was, as Franklin says, is a safe space for those who indulge. And like with the couple that invited us, they primarily engage with other couples because for them it's a safe place. And the reason why that they have certain rules is because you have to ask for, like single women or men couldn't just come in there and just get to the business. No, it
Right.
has to be a respectful place and space. And if they're not interested, maybe it would have just been an exchange of couples. I only went because I'm more of a one person kind of woman as well. But it was intriguing because I had been a part of he had an online adult sexual conversation, like a podcast kind of thing. And I was like, "Ooh, that's not me." I'm like, "Mm-mm." But then after talking and engaging and stuff, I said, "Okay, I'll go." And but after that, I was like, nope, 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 nope. I said, that is slipping down Allison in Wonderland's rabbit hole, and I don't need to be there. And so, but I think that these other couples who this is their lifestyle, I think that they find some level of intimacy because that's what they build and develop with these other relationships. Many of these people stay in the same circle and have the same partners in the circle. Or just like when you have those shows, like they had this show, was it the sister, no, it wasn't, yeah, it was the
Sister
sister
Wives.
husband.
Sister
It was the sister husbands, where they had the black woman who
Yes.
had two husbands, and she was trying to introduce her third, who was her ex, back into the picture. Like, they were very comfortable with that level of intimacy amongst them. And she, not that they had their shared time or anything like that, but she had her own specific time. But what happens if it was a shared experience where all of her husbands were involved? Like, I think it's what people make of it. But
Mhm.
I knew for me it was more of just experimentation. Part of it was to see how um, how risque I could be for the moment, but it wasn't something. That's just like where people. I know people that have dipped and dabbed in drugs just to see how it felt. I'm like, no, thank you. So that was the extent of my experimentation, and was not interested in going any further. But it wasn't a bad experience or anything like that. Thankfully.
I'm not, but no, it wasn't a bad experience because you got robbed. No, you had a good time. You had a good time,
Yeah,
right?
it was
That
it
was a
was
good
it
time.
was interesting. It was
It
interesting,
was
but
interesting, but
I wouldn't do it again.
here's the thing, right? So I've had clients who enjoyed those fantasies and stuff like that, right? So they would ask me, "Hey, Frank, can you set up?" While I was in Japan, right? Can you set up this environment for us to be able to have a good time? And so I had access to friends who had poles and stuff, guys. They want to be with big black guys and da 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 da. And so I'm like, all right, well, we'll make it happen. You get good to go. So my point is that she is now divorced, right? Simply because that to see your wife give that emotional connection, right? That emotional exchange that you cannot reciprocate. You can't. She's giving it away. She just gave the emotional part of the emotional connection, the one that supplies the meaningful relationship to somebody else, and she no longer has that. And so because she doesn't have that anymore, she can't reciprocate with you who she is supposed to be with. And so now, how does she now come back to giving that emotional connection with something that she no longer has? And that's where the problem is. That emotional connection when when you're in that swinging lifestyle, that you cannot give that emotional exchange with that person, because once you do that emotional exchange, it will be very difficult to recover from that when that emotional gap has been given away.
But don't you think that, or maybe you don't, and I can ask this to Kim and Legacy, you too, Franklin. Um, don't you think that it would be more it would be difficult for the woman to come back from that versus the man?
No, I think a man. Okay, so I think it would be more difficult for the man to a man. Are you saying a man watching his woman giving it away, or a woman
Oh my
watching the
gosh.
man give it away?
It could be
Anybody give
both. It could, let's say they're taking turns and he's watching her and then she's watching him and
See, because I think it goes back to that thought that men that have affairs are just doing it for sex. Women that have affairs are doing it for emotions, right, and love. Like we're really looking for something from this affair, whereas men just want to have sex and go home.
that
They just
that's
want something
that's not
different.
necessarily true. That's not necessarily true
no,
because
I
it
don't agree with that.
because again, most men no. Here's my thing about that. Go ahead. I'm stopping. Quiet.
No, no, it's go,
No,
listen,
no, but
interject. But I just
my thing is that when you see your partner give that emotional exchange, and so here's the thing is, right? Um, I saw my wife having the affair, right? I saw the man coming to my house, and I saw the way she lit up when we had conversations about their interactions, and I'm telling you, oh my gosh, to see that part that I could not give her, right, was devastating. And because she had given that emotional exchange, right, she could not recover, and therefore she had to leave. That's my perspective, and that's my lived the experience.
so could you recover from seeing that?
So for me, what happened was that because I understood that I missed it in the sexual part, right? I missed it in those components. I missed it, just not giving her quality time because I know that I missed it, right? I felt like I was giving her a pass, right? And that I'm sorry that for 20 years, I got like 480 times that I didn't listen. I got, again, and that's just 2 times a month. Just 2 times a month. This 480 after 20 years that I got 480 times that you didn't come. And right? Minimum, right? And a minimum, right? And I know the numbers, right? Because I was there. I know what happened. And because I was honest with myself, I was willing to accept the cost of her having this moment to at least experience the desire and the feelings. And so I was willing to absorb that payment because there was no other way I can go back and receive the 480, right? And that's what happened. That's why I was in the space where I came back after seeing all this stuff and was willing to continue the marriage, right? Because I believe that I found a formula, that I knew that providing this emotional support, this safety, and all those other things that are required in an intimate relationship, that reciprocity, I knew that for 20 years I didn't reciprocate. I didn't truly go down on the inside and share my emotions. One, because I was emotionally numb from the third grade, right? So I didn't have an emotional vocabulary to connect with her or my children. I knew that when I understood that it's required in an intimate relationship to make that exchange, and I didn't do it. I know I didn't do it. I know that there was some times I skimmed off the top. I know there was some times that I lied. That she took some shorts, right? That instead of her having weed, there was some oregano in there, right? I know that, and she smoked it right there and didn't say anything. But I walked away with the $30, right? And I was happy. And that's the part where I had to man up and say, you know what? Go ahead and have it. Go ahead and do it. Have a good time. And amen.
Mm. So how
Well,
can men support um, women when it comes to being supportive with something that, let's say, you're not comfortable with? How can you guys provide women with more support in being vulnerable in the bedroom, or even when it comes to role playing, which men may not be very comfortable with? Um,
Yeah, and so the thing that I have these 5 components, right? These 5 things that if it does not meet these 5 things, that we have to have a conversation as to understand why you're not willing to go through something that, watch this, is not illegal, it's not immoral, it's not unethical, does not cause self-harm or harm to others. So what I'm getting ready to ask you to do is safe and okay. So what I would like for you to do is now explain to me your fears of what somebody told you about what happened when you do this. And that's where that conversation has to happen, is because now that's where that safe space and that brave space comes into play, and being able to say, well, I was molested when I was I was third grade, right? And since then I'm saying I don't do that. And then for you to be able to now say, hey, listen, baby, that's not going to happen again. I understand and I'm sorry that that happened to you, but this is what we getting ready to. This is I want to show you my unique intimate expression. I want to show you something about me that nobody has ever seen before. But in order for you to be able to experience it, you got to put on the parachute. Because when we jump out the plane, you need to experience, watch this, terminal velocity. And after you experience terminal velocity, you have to have a parachute in order for you to now be able to do it again. And be able to share that experience with each other. And that's where that emotion, that safe space, that conversation comes into play. Whereas I didn't judge you when you told me about I didn't judge you when you told me about your cousin. I didn't judge me about how you made coffee. I didn't judge you about the way that you fold clothes. And so because I didn't judge you about that, or because you did judge me about that, I'm not telling you about the time I was molested when I was in third grade.
Mm.
I'm not telling you. So how we have to do it and what we need to do in order to break down those barriers is that we one have to first understand that what happened happened, and what happened in the past will never happen again. It's not going to happen again. One, because you're not going to be 3 years old again. You're not going to be 12 years old again. And that person who was there when you were 3 and when you were 12 is never going to be there. So that's not going to happen again. So now let's now create a new experience with each other. And now let's talk about how when you don't feel comfortable, you say something. And I'm gonna make sure that you feel safe throughout the entire process. And then the last part is that you walk away. I'm going to ensure that you walk away with a positive experience.
One, and I'll just share this, one of the most vulnerable, most intimate experiences I had with a guy that I'm dating now was when he asked me to get on the bed, and he sat in a chair in front of the bed naked, and I had to get naked, and he said, I want you to play with yourself until you orgasm. And instantly I'm like, oh my God, that must not look good from down there. Oh my God, where's my mom? Like this, I was raised Catholic. Like, we don't do this kind of stuff. Turn off the lights. What are you doing? You got to actually watch this, right? And it was just him coaxing me through. Oh, how beautiful it looked.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Yeah. To just close your eyes and imagine I'm there and I'm with you and I'm stroking it, and it was one of the most powerful experiences I've ever had.
Yes.
It allowed me to be okay with letting myself go and letting myself be vulnerable in this space with him.
Yes, that's what I'm talking about.
You know,
Frankly, you sound like you are in the midst of it yourself.
I know, doesn't he?
No, you're right. I'm excited because she got to, oh my gosh.
And you
That's
know
awesome.
No, watch this here. She had to collect a unique experience.
And
That
so
could-
often women just do not have some women and men, and I'll say there are a lot of women that just are not comfortable within their own body enough to be able to do that. Like you said, you had your own questions that went firing through your head, but because you were comfortable, you allowed yourself to have the experience. And that's awesome.
and to be able, go ahead, Kim. This your
And
turn.
he helped, and he coaxed me through it.
He coached her through it.
He coached me through the entire moments because I'm thinking, oh, I'm gonna have the ugly face when I come, and he's just like, no, this is all beautiful. But yeah, it was amazing, and I wish
And to be able to pinpoint, watch this here, to be able to pinpoint the place in which she can bring the most maximum pleasure to herself. Watch this at any moment. At
Right.
any moment.
And I
But
think a big thing. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Kim.
it's Laria.
Oh,
It's
I'm sorry.
great.
Go ahead, Golden.
Going back to what Kim was saying, I remember, Kim, you and I having a conversation once, and we were talking about sex and intimacy and orgasms and whatnot, and we were talking about our bodies and how we react when our then spouses. And I remember saying to her, "Well, gosh, I'm not comfortable. I just don't want him to like see those parts of me." And you said something that was so amazing and remarkable, and I've never forgot it. And you said, Laria, they don't see what we see.
Mm.
Mm.
When
Mm-hmm.
someone is into you, loves you, cares about having that just phenomenal connection, they don't care about the stretch marks, after the baby, and because most of us, women that have had children, the first thing we're going to do is like, oh my God, my body is just so messed up after having these kids and blah blah blah, and you want to turn the lights off, and you want to keep your mama nursing gown on, and you're just like, okay, pull the gown down when you're done, and you just don't want to show that side of you. And that is something that just really, and thank you so much, Kim, has stuck with me, and I've always remembered that they don't see what we see in ourselves. And that is
Right.
so
I
cool.
had to learn that, like this guy said to me, he says, I want to see you naked. And I was like, well, dang, I can't take anything else off unless you want me to take my skin off. And he said, no, I want to see inside of you. Put the towel down, stop hiding yourself. I just don't want to see you. What I see is not necessarily, I mean, I see the outside, and it looks amazing to me, to him, but I want to see you from the inside out. And that's when I really know you. That's when I really, because, for women, we grab in the towel. We don't want to walk to the bathroom with, clothes on. And he was like, put that towel down. Take that shirt off. And it took me a while to really allow myself to be seen. And yeah.
And now, how do you feel that you can be that vulnerable and feel that sense of loving and belonging with him?
Freedom.
There's just no, we don't have any boundary lines.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
We don't have any, we go wherever we want to go. And sometimes that means he has to be vulnerable too, when I go places that he's not necessarily comfortable with. There's just no boundaries.
That's so good too, Kim, because I have an ex-boyfriend, and I introduced him to something. I won't really say what it is, but it was
Strap on.
no. But it was a place of uncomfortability for him, and but he allows me to be a little open and risque a little bit with him, and and what I enjoy is how excited he gets now. you know um we had got to a point in our we were dating, and then we got to a point where it was just we were dating long distance, and he was doing too much and was on what I call missions trips and dating other women and stuff. And so he apparently, so we had stopped, but he had tried to, someone else tried to do the same thing, and he was like, I couldn't do it. I said, that's funny. And I said, because you weren't supposed to. But it was so exciting to see that he was able to release and explore him, other aspects of his personality, and and even myself, because when we first started dating, because we were people that we grew up together, so I had known him since we were little kids, and in our dating, well, one, I was very amazed at the package that he was given, because he's not a big guy. He's actually a little bit shorter than me. And then I guess because I was so comfortable, because I grew up around him, even though I had no interest in him growing up. I thought he liked my sister. And we called each other brother and sister, but all the while, since we were kids, he had a crush on me. And I was like, "Are you kidding me?" And so when he found me, we started seeing each other. I was just so amazed, but I was amazed really at how comfortable I was, and allowed myself, like you said, you were able to allow this gentleman to, just help you to explore your sexuality even further, and just, uncover your body and allow him to guide you. And it was a very similar experience. And actually, with that in particular relationship, we, were a little aggressive in our relationship, which was very intriguing to me. Oh gosh, when I think about some of the things that I've done, but not even just with him, but it
Yeah.
just I've explored. This is an interesting topic, but yeah, I think that women and men. Now, I'm not saying go overboard and do a whole lot of other things, because there is a lot of
So
debauchery out here in the world going on. But I think as individuals, I have had lots of conversations with women, and so many are so closed up and are not willing to, like, I know women who have been married 20 plus years and will have not performed oral sex on their husband since their wedding day. I know
Mhm.
barely would have the lights on. Women who um, won't get dressed, like they won't even go out with their husband if, like, everything isn't perfect. Their hair is not perfect, their eyebrows are not perfect, their eyelashes are not perfect. So much less when it comes to sexual intimacy. Most are not intimate with their spouses, maybe every 2 to 3 months, and it's usually before or after their menstrual cycle, because our peak is more increased during that time frame. And it's really sad that they have not figured out what is the bond, the barrier, what's holding them bound from really exploring. Is it something from their past? Is it their inability to be that comfortable, separate and apart from their husband? That's in their own level of comfortability and knowledge, and of them, of self, and comfortability with self. That level of knowing who you are as a person.
Mhm.
and I think that comes with the person, either man or woman, their ability to help their partner to feel safe in the
It's more than that,
cognitive
though.
intimate, huh?
It's more than that, though.
No,
It's in
no.
that individual themselves first.
But remember, we talked about having a safe space and a brave space. That person still has to be brave in that moment to 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 fall back. Baby, I got you. You. I'm 6'3". Well, no, I'm. Let's be for real. I'm 5'5", 5'6", right? I'm 5'6", and you 6'3", and I'm like, baby, I got you. Fall back.
But how could she fall back if she's not even comfortable in her own skin? That's what I'm talking
But
about.
but but,
There
but
are a
the
lot of women who couldn't even begin to fall back because they're not even comfortable
point.
standing in the bathroom by themselves in the mirror. I had a girlfriend who had no mirror in her bedroom,
Mhm.
and years later I found out that because she couldn't stand what she saw on the other side of the mirror.
And that's the
Mhm.
part that we have to. So for example, in this particular case, all right, baby, I want you to sit down on the floor, fall back from that point.
It's more than
Well,
that,
it's deeper
Franklin.
than
No,
that,
no, but
Franklin. It's so much deeper than just,
Yes.
let's
you're
say, maybe
absolutely right. The point is
Yes.
that walking that person, allowing that person to get comfortable with you. The
yeah,
point
but
is
that's
that
going
this
to
is our
take a
moment right
few
here.
therapy sessions. That's going to take a few therapy sessions.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It definitely, because we have to get past. We have to not
That
get
trauma.
past ourselves in that moment.
Right.
We have to get
Hmm.
past the way we were raised and that generational stuff that was passed down to us, which allows us to walk around as adults with all of these insecurities that were instilled in us from way, way, way back when.
Right.
And that's my point that you're missing out on one of the most amazing people right in front of you simply because you won't let go of something that happened that isn't going to happen again.
Yeah.
It's not. Watch this. It's not happening again. You're right here with me. I got the door lock. I got ADT. I got the gun right down here. Ain't nobody coming in here to hurt you.
But it may not even be that. It just may be, it may not even have been a trauma. It could have been upbringing. You have people who are
You're
raised.
45 now. You're
It
45.
doesn't matter. It doesn't matter that
That's
that
right.
mama or that grandmama or that daddy telling you you keep your legs crossed. You have to
Absolutely.
act demure. You have to be prude when you are out
Yes.
and about. There's not, even with your husband, you don't go just
Do that.
rogue and be
Right.
uncovered. You're supposed
Right.
to put on your robe when a lady dresses, in her boudoir or back in the day they had boudoirs, in the bathroom or in your closet. You don't show everything, or you slide up underneath, with your negligee up underneath the comforter, and like
Absolutely.
you said,
Yes.
you pull it, you draw it back, and you let your husband do his business, and then you push it back down, and you turn over, you go clean yourself, or you grab some tissue, and you turn over, and that's it. And you have women who were still raised with
Right.
their families like that. That has nothing to do with
Right.
the
And
man.
then,
That has
and
nothing to do with trauma, because it's
mhm,
not traumatic in the sense of she
right.
thinking it's the right way to be, but not
Right.
knowing that there's so much more
And
that
and
she could
then
be
you have
exploring.
and then you have a man who provides a safe space for you and say, baby, go ahead and play with yourself right here. I know your mother told you that this was taboo, but I want to see the best part of you right now. And then
Okay,
right?
so may I suggest that
Go ahead.
let's say you're in a, let's role play here. We're in a situation, and I am just, I've been raised, I picked up this learned behavior from my mama.
Mm-hmm.
You just let your man do his thing, and you lay there and you cover up and blah 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 blah. But then here you come along and you say, I got you, it's okay, let's just explore. Then I think that's when you have to have a discussion of fears and frustrations and desires, but you have to be creative and supportive. And I mean, you have to, okay, so instead of saying, well, hey, I want you to like take your robe off and I want you to touch yourself. Why did I think in some cases you may have to show her how to touch herself together. And I mean literally together,
Right.
like taking her
Absolutely.
hand and slowly helping her to caress, show her how to caress her body, caress your body. But it's going to take time. It's going to take more than just, hey, it's okay. Yeah, it's going to take conversation, but also it's going to take that intimate physical touch.
Yeah.
But it has
Absolutely.
to be slow. It can't be
You have
something
to
like
get rid of
bam.
all that junk in your head about sex. And Golden, you and I have this conversation a lot where, um, you have to get rid of this cynical attitude about sex in order to even be open to receive somebody coaching you. And you're right, it's not a simple process. And it occurs over time, but it occurs a lot easier when you have a partner that is like Champ Franklin said, that is supportive and saying, "Baby, I got you. It's okay. It don't matter if you squirt all over the place or if your face is distorted and you look crazy. It doesn't matter." But I think it starts in the mind where we have to tell ourselves, gotta wash ourselves clean of all that stuff, that junk that was fed to us growing up, and even within our marriages.
And when you have, I'm sorry, no, I'm not sorry, because I wanted to put this part in there. And when you have a partner who does not let you quit, when they don't let you quit, like, I don't feel like, no, baby, come on, no, you can do it. There's more in you. There's more in you. And then once you get that breakthrough and that little small victory, and now you plan, oh my gosh. And then that, because again, it's that conditioning.
Well,
And when you go ahead, come on, talk to me.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but I'm going to share this part. I think it goes beyond that, because that woman has to be comfortable seeing herself on the other side of the mirror. Case in point, I grew up very shy. I didn't have all that other rigmarole, the boudoir and the negligee, all that kind of stuff. However, because I was very shy, I wasn't, in my intimacy and relationships, growing up and stuff, I like the lights out, wasn't trying to be looking at man eyeball to eyeball. I ain't trying to look in your face. But
Right.
when I got older and older, to stand in the mirror. Like even now, I stand in the mirror and I look at every dimple. And it's funny because growing up, I always, like, I used to tell my girlfriends, I'm like, you don't take a picture, you don't like take a mirror and look at yourself down there. So many women have never took a mirror and looked at their vagina,
Right.
looked at their rear end, looked
Mhm.
at their anus. And so I'm like, look at every little dimple. Like if for a
And put
woman
your
to,
finger in there. Put your finger in there.
well, even first, just look at your body and start to love every little curve, stretch
Mhm.
mark, cellulite mark, mole. Like I remember the first time I realized I had a mole on the center of my back. I was like, oh, wow. Or I was just being curious and I put my camera up on the mirror and I put the 10-second timer on and
Mhm.
I bent over and took a picture because I was like, what does my mate see when I bend over? And so I was like, oh,
Should put it on
okay.
that 200 snaps.
Right. And I was like, wow. When a woman is able to really appreciate who she is in her body, then
Absolutely.
then she can go and she might feel comfortable enough to let that towel drop or to let up even just a portion of the towel, or maybe she keeps it wrapped around her waist but she feels more comfortable showing her breast, or the opposite way, lay on the bed and maybe she turned to the side and her derriere is exposed and he's able to then caress it, or she caresses it herself, to slowly introduce. But yes, now that she's becoming more comfortable, it's a beautiful thing to then to be able to explore with someone, who's saying that you're beautiful, that I want the light on so I can see you, I can look. I mean, I remember for years I would not open my eyes. And I'm like, no, I'm not trying to look at you,
Right.
and they're like, no, look at me. I want you to see me.
Mhm.
And I have to be honest, I'm 56. It has been more recent, probably in my late 40s to my early 50s, that I can feel comfortable looking at the person. I didn't really care for the lights either because I like the darkness because I can get to imagine in my head. But if my
Mhm.
mate wants the lights on, I'm like, okay, let's have the lights on. I'm a little bit more adventurous. Listen, I'm so adventurous. I'm like, leave the curtains open. I don't care. And so, and I've explored. I've been tied, with a with a tie, and I've had hot wax and ice across my
With the
back.
red ball in your mouth.
No, not with the red ball, but and when I tell you, pleasure pain is a thing, and it is quite amazing. You know,
Absolutely.
to
I got
have that
you.
hot wax dripped as in one hand as ice is wiped on the other. Ooh, I was like,
Come on
holy.
now, talk to me.
I was like, oh my lord, what was that?
So
Well,
going.
you know what, Legacy? I think, and as a woman,
Mhm,
I would say as we get older and as we mature, we
mhm.
tend to understand our bodies more,
Yes.
and we tend to like our bodies. I was thinking of this song
Mhm.
by Mary J. Blige, and she talks about I like what I see when when I walk by the mirror. Don't dress something something something. I
Oh
can't
yes.
remember the lyrics. But that is one of my favorite songs, and I just think about, I see the difference in my body now than I did 20, 30 years ago. And I love my body now. Just exploring different ways and seeing how your body is different. So I think that as women get older, we tend to understand our bodies, and we tend to go with the flow, or start doing things that we enjoy.
Right.
Right. So going back to the part where we talk about intimacy being a level of commitment.
Hmm.
And when we look at the cognitive intimacy and the spiritual intimacy down at the bottom of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, that's why I always go back to Maslow's hierarchy of needs, because it gives you these levels, right? And so when you have, where we're talking about is at the highest level, is at the self actualization level of sexual intimacy. That's where it happens, at the top. And so, if the person has not met the cognitive intimacy and sharing in a reciprocal relationship and advance to helping that person feel a sense of loving and belonging, and now experiencing emotional intimacy where they're sharing feelings and emotions one with another in a positive way, that person begins to feel good about the emotional connection that they have. If that doesn't happen when it comes to you falling backwards, it's not going to happen, because you didn't support me when I cried. You didn't support me. You weren't there with me when I was telling you about how I felt about, you know, I didn't get this promotion, and you didn't support me there. So I don't have a connection with you. I don't have a sense of loving and belonging with you. And so I don't really know that you have me. And because I don't believe that you have me, and there's like 7 or 8 things that I have not told you, I'm not gonna let you put that thing in my booty. I ain't doing that.
Well, Kim.
I'm just saying,
You gotta sneak that thing in there.
you get. I'm. But the thing is, but you're right. But you also have to understand that person has to be aroused.
Right, right.
That person has to be relaxed. That person has to be lubricated. Right. That you can't just go with a dry finger, bruh. Hold on. When last time you had those nails manicured? Right. Right? No,
Do an
I'm just
inspection.
saying that you can't go straight 3 fingers in the booty. No,
Oh my.
Oh,
you
oh,
can't do that.
my Lord.
I'm just saying,
Ah.
right?
Jesus.
Right? Unless that person gets highly aroused and this is not their third time doing it,
Mm.
right? And that person and you're not lubed, somebody's gonna get hurt. And
You know what you
somebody's
just
sister
reminded me
is
too, Franklin?
what?
You just reminded me too about our ability and inability to tell our mate what we like and don't like, which is extremely important because 3 fingers in the
Mhm.
booty, I'd be like, absolutely not. you know. And I remember that there was a time that I could not tell my mate that what I did not like, or and I would just let it happen, and that's not okay. And I realized I'm like, I'm not going to sit here and be uncomfortable and then be unfulfilled. And again, it was me understanding my body and stuff. And so where, you know, I'm like, oh, it's going in the right direction. It's going in the right direction. Okay, 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 okay. Yeah, I like that. And then they shift and move. I'm like, no, don't move. You know, because I'll be quick to say, don't you dare move. Stay right where you're at, right there. Okay, just move a little bit. Right there. Don't move. And then I'll be mad if they move. I'm like, didn't I tell you not to move?
Right.
Active
And if he
listening
can't
is
follow
important.
instructions on how to mow the lawn, right? He's not gonna be able to follow instructions on how to get to the A spot or the deep spot or the P spot, right? Those are just the erogenous zones inside of the vagina, right?
Mhm.
He ain't gonna know. He ain't gonna be able to pay attention to that part. He ain't gonna know that right there in the front is where it's really sensitive. And so because he got that big pole and he pushing all the way in the back, and ain't nothing back there. Ain't nothing back there. Ain't nothing back there. Nothing back there. All the fun is in the front. Well, I should say most of it, right? But my point is that if he's not listening in the kitchen, if he's not listening in in the office, if he's not listening in the living room, when you get to the bedroom and it's really important to you, he's not gonna listen, and somebody's gonna get hurt. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been amazing.
Yes.
Woo! Kim, thank you for
Yeah.
coming on. Oh my gosh, we're at 9:30, and I think it's just time to wrap it up. We got to do part 2, part 3.
Yeah, this was excellent. Excellent.
Yeah, it was a great, much needed conversation.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
So we know that don't go 3 fingers in the booty.
Oh, no.
Start
No.
out with one.
Right. Listen, you can stay out
You
of there
you
because
gotta
it
you
distracts
gotta at
me.
least
Take her
do the
behind
pinky
there.
test,
Stay
right?
out of there. It's
You gotta
distracting to me.
at least do the pinky test, right? At least
Oh,
this the
Lord. Not the pinky test.
all right. Okay. All right. Okay. All right.
That
Okay.
is
Okay.
hilarious. We
This
need
is
another
hilarious.
man for part 2. We
We
need
need to,
another
yes, absolutely.
man.
We need to. Okay. Wait, I'm
Ne-
bringing it, but he ain't gonna be able to. But maybe we need another man who's gonna be on here, who's gonna be vulnerable and tell his truth, right?
Yeah,
Mm.
Absolutely.
of
Yeah,
course.
absolutely. All right, so
I
you
might have
all
some candidates. I might have some
okay? Yeah,
candidates to
bring
invite.
a candidate, the guy who, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Here we go, ladies and gentlemen. The champ is here, baby. Oh my gosh, Legacy, Kim Team, Golden, and the champ was here talking about before you go there, you have to provide a safe space where that person can be vulnerable. And in a vulnerable moment, there has to be a safe space and there has to be a brave space. Because if it's not there, somebody is not going to experience a sense of loving and belonging. And that's essential. Let's go!
They said I wouldn't make it, but I'm here now.
What? Yes, thank you,
And
Kim.
I'm here to stay, never go down. Cause I'm
I'm
a
a champion.
champion,
Ow!
a
Thank you, Kim. I
champion.
love you.
Cause I'm a
Thank you.
champion.
Yes,
Cause I'm a
legacy,
champion, a
golden. Yes.
champion.
Tune in Mondays and Wednesdays at 8 a.m. Be sure to like, subscribe, because right here at Intimate Discovery,
Keep doing it to
8 p.m. 8 p.m. Mondays and Wednesdays at 8 p.m.
Let's go. They said I wouldn't make it, but I'm here
We're going to be
now.
here. I'll see you then. Like, subscribe,
And I'm
share,
here to stay,
follow us
never
on
go
Instagram.
down.
We'll be back
Cause I'm a
on
champion,
Wednesdays at 8 p.m.
camp out.
Cause I'm a champion. Cause I'm a champion. A champion.
Hey, Stephanie. Love you, baby. Way to go. Appreciate you. Oh, yeah, we did another shout out on the